Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Reacher, Season 1, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode. The team had to leave Molly Beth's body behind. They called police just so that her body could be found, but obviously Finley feels bad. It's like, right, we shouldn't have just left her dead body there, but they couldn't stick around because if they did, who's to say any of the police that showed up? Like, all of this involves it's a lot of power and reach that there's no guarantee the cops that showed up wouldn't be dirty cops, wouldn't try and frame them for the crime, so they had to leave her behind, and the only way they could get revenge for her and give her justice, is to solve all of this. And I talked about it last episode that this would hit Jack hard because God, that's phrasing. Sorry, it would affect him deeply. The innuendo's still flowing. Because she was the last connection to his brother. Like, they talked a little bit about Joe, but could have talked about more about Joe in his life these past 2 years that she knew him, that they got close. And he also talks about it with Roscoe. He personally feels responsible because he's like, I should have never gotten her involved in all of this because she was just trying to do the right thing and help out with Joe. And it's like, that he obviously they didn't want a paper trail connected to her anyway because they knew it would look bad upon her doing what she was doing, but they, jail time was like the least of their concerns of her breaking laws. Now it's like it cost her life, and Reacher's just feeling bad just because like so many people, like, bodies are racking up around this situation and it's not slowing down. So he ends up going to the Huddle House and ends up getting the other car because the previous one got shot to shit. So going out in style, goes back to the station because that's where they're going to meet everyone up with. I actually skipped over it. I really liked that we got the conclusion to that dog thing. I was almost hoping that he would keep the dog, but I'm assuming, having not seen the entire season, obviously season 2 comes out this week, and I've not seen a trailer for it. I've avoided everything because I haven't finished the season. But I'm assuming Jack's not going to stick around. Like, I'm assuming every season is going to be like a new town he's in. I don't know. I'm saying I just get the feeling like he's not going to stick around. It's just kind of the wanderer that he is. He never sticks around. He just moves on. I doubt season 2 takes place in Margraves, I'm sure. So we probably won't see Finley and Roscoe by the end of this. We'll see them, but like in the future we probably won't. Maybe not. We'll see how that all fares out. But I'm assuming it's almost going to be like just. If you've seen The Sinner, how that moves on from investigation to investigation, every season's a new I'm sure that's kind of what it is. And it's like, yeah, it stays the same base of operations every season, but I think he's going to move from city to city and just kind of continue to wander around, helping wherever he goes. Kind of like that, kind of almost like a wandering warrior in that regard. I'm assuming that's kind of like the storyline of the Jack Reacher. I mean, I don't know if that's applicable to the book, but I feel like that might be, books, but I feel like that's applicable maybe to the show. Once again, I could be completely wrong. I haven't seen the end of this season, so either way, going back to, but my point was I thought he was going to keep the dog. I do like we got this little storyline beat with the dog, and the dog this time is like bloodied up because the chain is too tight and is digging to its skin. Reacher lays the guy out because the last time he came here he was with Finley, and even Finley thought like, no, it's kind of messed up treating animals wrong this way. You can be brought up on legal charges. So Finley like was helping get the chain off the dog. Reacher hit the dude, put the chain around him. I was like, how do you like that? And they take the dog to a no-kill shelter. I was like I said, I was hoping he'd keep the dog, but right, you don't really have a place of residence here, so you want the dog to actually have a good home to potentially get adopted too. So that was kind of a nice situation, because I was kind of scared too in the back of my mind. I'm like, I hope that guy doesn't do something stupid, because obviously he talked about it previously. He got the dog because I think it belonged to like his brother or something, and the dog it belonged to someone else that died, and he ended up getting it. I think he said it was his brother's or somebody's, and he didn't really want the dog, so he just treated it badly, or rather just kind of didn't care enough to keep an eye on it. So just shows how much he sucked. You want to show how shitty a person is, just show them treating animals badly. That's all you have to do. But either way, when they reunite, Roscoe is scrubbing the word whore off of her truck. Now, obviously, Reacher immediately knows it's KJ, and they have that little sit down too. And KJ's such an entitled asshole because he's sitting there acting like he's hot shit. It's like, Reacher's gonna lay your ass out, but for him, it's like, well, I want that, because even Reacher's like, no, I know what you did. You put your truck in a place where you knew I'd recognize it. You knew I'd fly it off the handle the moment I saw what you did to Roscoe's truck. Because obviously he has a thing for her, so I'm sure there's a little truth to that. That's him just being a vindictive asshole, but it's also because he wanted to get a rise out of, I don't know what he thinks, like, oh, once you're removed from the equation, like, Roscoe's gonna come flying into your arms, but it's probably more so a thing of, if I can't have her, no one will. So, but he's such a little entitled piece of shit, and even Richard calls him out for it. It's like, what kind of man you are, like, trying to intimidate a woman half your size. To be fair, it's a woman that doesn't get intimidated, so your intimidation tactics ain't gonna work. And it's like, yeah, but if you were smart, to be weary about me because I'm going to hit you. And the thing is, you act like you know it all, but you don't know what it's like to be hit by me, because if you did, you wouldn't have started this shit. Reacher handles him and his boy, and it's like, oh, he pulled out the knife. It's like, oh, you lucky good old daddy stepped in, because boy, oh boy, you would have been in for a hurting, because Reacher wouldn't have stabbed you. Probably would have broken some damn bones or something. But, luckily, Finley and Roscoe showed up in time, because Roscoe saw the way Reacher peeled off. It's like, shit, I know what he's doing. So, Kleiner's trying to, like, have charges pressed against Reacher. Like, a nearby patron's like, oh yeah, like, or maybe he's the owner of the place. It's like, yeah, KJ was doing nothing. That big guy came in there to start shit. Yada, 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 so on and so forth. To be fair, a lot of people in this town are going to have his back regardless, so there's nothing you can do about it. But turns out Kleiner's not pressing charges, which obviously for Reacher, he's like, yeah, because he's not stupid. If we just take this to court, it turns into a suit situation, and like, I could force a lot of Kleiner Industries like to reveal some records on KJ's part because of the suit, whatever. They don't want a lot of that on the public records. Revealed that Till ended up firing Roscoe because why the bastard even looked into why he even bothered looking into the file. He definitely didn't. He probably got like either Stevenson or Baker, most likely Stevenson, to like double check her work, because she got fired because the rental car that belonged to Joe, she said it belonged to someone else that was kind of one of the people that was on the list that he's like, oh, look at these people that are people that Chief Morrison put away, yada, 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 the whole BS to kind of keep them tied up in going down a wild goose chase. Like, there's no way he would have checked that himself, so he has to have had Steven, like, double-checking her work for him to even find that out like that, because it ain't been that long for that information to have been kind of sitting there. That, like, to be able to kind of pull that this soon, double-checking her work, he just doesn't seem like, he seems like the delegating type, so I highly, highly doubt he would have done that himself, especially because he has no police training or whatever, so he definitely left that to either Baker or Stevenson. My money's on Stevenson. But obviously they decide to investigate more on this Gray's situation, because they found out, was it last episode, about, alright, there's the file, some files from Gray that Joe was aware of, but it's like, no, Gray didn't have any files. And they ultimately ended up finding a key in the box that the gun came out of, because he had given the gun to Roscoe almost a full year before he ended up, quote unquote, killing himself. So that ended up they ended up finding the recipient box to the key in Mosley's. I guess he never actively went out of his way to tell her, because it's like, I guess they didn't really explain it, but I can only assume Mosley was given he's like, right, if she ever comes looking for it, tell her I'm proud of her. But if she never comes looking for it, Gray most likely didn't want her in danger, but it's like, if she stumbles upon this on her own, don't go out of your way to draw her here, because, well, for one, that draw too much attention, but if she comes here for her own volition, that means she did a good enough job to find out the truth about things. So they end up going through the files, and they end up finding out that what this is all about, to some extent, that basically the Kleiner like foundation or whatever is trying to make it seem like, oh, we're giving out this money charitable, but it's like, why they're not making enough money to like offset the large amount of money that they're giving out to these small companies and businesses here in Margroves. So the question then becomes, well, why are they doing that? Why this particular town? It's because it's the perfect distribution center, because certain routes, this town has that easy route to Florida, as well as like other distribution routes that you'll less likely have to deal with a large police presence. So this place is significant. So that's why it's such a important place. Who, because we also find out this background thing that we've been seeing kind of being dealt with since like the first episode has been in the background, this whole thing with the Coast Guard stuff. Well, there's been a blockade for like a year. Once again, everything trails back to like a year ago, and because of that the money from outside hasn't been getting in to the US like they wanted it to, so they've had to, you know, deal with that, and Kleiner's running low on money. That's why all this stuff is happening. It's like, why all these sudden, like, this operation's been going for a while, but why is it only more recently you've gone through the trouble of killing a Secret Service agent and so many people? Like, why have you been racking up so many bodies? It's because the noose is getting tighter, because the operation is in danger. Kleiner needs to kind of keep things above board, because the more the money sitting outside of the U.S., the more likely they're going to get caught. So they're trying to get rid of any extensive ties back to the operation, because they say like the person who's counterfeiting all this money is most likely trying to buy something really, really big. Like, what that necessarily entails, who knows? Like what this whole operation really was meant to be about, and what the purpose of like this large scale amount of money is supposed to be. But it's not until like throughout all of this that it finally clicks in Roscoe's head that Gray didn't commit suicide. He died. Someone murdered him, which I said from the very beginning, just the timing is interesting. Like, all of this kind of really started popping off like a year ago. I was like, right, we've seen how they've handled people who got too close. I was like, there's no way Gray just killed himself. It's like someone murdered him and made it look like a suicide. And I think for Roscoe, where it's like this person who was the last piece of family she had, now finding out he died and she didn't know the entire time, so I think that motivates her even more to find out the truth, especially when Reacher, thinking about to the past, tells her, and it ends up being the title of the episode, no apologies. Like, you want your revenge, good, let that motivate you. Don't apologize for anything. You know, just like he's going full steam ahead on getting revenge for his brother. He knows a thing or two about, and he co-signs, you know, getting revenge when someone you care about is like murdered. She ended up going to visit Jasper at one point in time, and apparently when he was supposedly like so drunk when he tried to like hang himself, he ended up hitting like a chair or a workbench. But looking at the wound, it took me a little while when they were like, oh, it looks like there's a diamond pattern. I'm like, what would that be in relation to? And I was like, immediately I was like, right, the thing they focus on the most when it comes to Teal, that cane. And that's what set it off for Roscoe. It's like, that bastard, he might not have directly did it, but he was at least he played a role, and he most likely knocked him out and had some muscle there. I could definitely see it being like either a Baker or a Stevenson was there to help out. Maybe even a Kleiner, who knows? Well, more specifically, maybe KJ was there, or maybe some people who work for Kleiner. Like, we've seen some of the muscle that works on the staff, so any of them could have been responsible for it. I'd almost kind of want it to be KJ to be a part of it, just to make it so Roscoe can go after his ass after everything. But yeah, she confronted him and like punched the shit out of him. Now, not only is she was already fired. Now there's a warrant out for arrest, so she has to leave Margraves, because it's like she couldn't hold it in anymore. It's like the only family she had left, the guy that was like a second father to her, is dead, because he was looking too deeply into this, which we see that kind of spreads out more, because eventually Reacher goes to meet up with Neely, which I kept saying like Neely, it's like the G is silent in her name. which I think is so interesting. He was breaking down like how he was going to track her down, but funny enough, the way she's like, oh no, like I'm the one that found you because I know how you think. You were. It's not like, oh, he was following her trail. Well, he was thinking how she was thinking, but really she was thinking how he was thinking. It's kind of a like it's very like Ouroboros-esque because it's like, right, he trained her and everything, so she spent enough time with him to know how like he thinks. So all the stuff he was saying about how she would be where she would stay and stuff like that, she'd only pick this particular place, she wouldn't pick somewhere that's like 5-star and stuff like that. But he's like, oh, are you staying at a place across the street? She's like, no, I'm like in a private sector now, so I'm staying at a Four Seasons place, because he was coming at it more so from his perspective. So he had mostly gotten it right, which I brought up before. Like, so far Reacher's been pretty like I said, I still don't think he's gotten everything right about the Sharon thing. Like I brought up my suspicions about that in previous reviews, but I think so for the most part, I think he's kind of got like a 90% rate of being right about stuff. So, but they end up kind of discussing stuff. We find out the person from the EPA was an EPA agent that was looking into some. And once again, it's an environment agency, so it's like, what's their involvement in this? The agent in particular was murdered, but it was kind of handled and brushed off like just a random robbery. There was a silencer used, plus there was nothing stolen, so it was definitely a hit. But looking into it, this they investigate more. They end up finding out that this all stems with some town basically dealing with pollution from a company. Later on, it's found out that that company has ties to Kleiner. So what does that fully have to do with, like, they're like counterfeiting plays a role in this, but we're still not getting the bigger picture, because obviously they were covering their tracks about some shady business dealings that they had, where it's like Kleiner owned a business that was polluting a town and kind of ruined the river, and then immediately moves on to another small town. But the question is, why? What are you trying to get out of this? How does that connect in any shape or form with the counterfeit money? Maybe it's a situation of Kleiner's thing was his own thing, and then this outside source reached out to be like, oh, we can help you with the money and resources necessary to kind of deal with that. Or maybe it is directly connected of like the stuff that they were dumping has something to do with South America and this whole counterfeit money situation. Because it turns out the EPA agent was killed in the exact same way Joe was. Not only was he shot, he was also like beaten up post-death. It's like, that makes me feel like it's probably, my money at the time was like, it seemed like that might be Baker. Now I'm kind of thinking that might be like, what's his name, Darwin or whatever, what's his name, Dawson or whatever. Like I said, I think that's KJ's cousin or whatever. The dude that's with him, he seems psychopathic enough that you'd be like, it probably could be him, or maybe KJ's because KJ seems like the meticulous type. Like he'd be the, oh, I'm a fire, but he also seems like he could be the type to lose his cool and just beat up on a body for no reason. So that those two seem like a duo, because my thought was like, it's got to be Stevenson and what's his face, but maybe it's maybe KJ, Stevenson, and Dawson or whatever, like his cousin's name that rolls with him. I don't know. So many people that could fit the role. Once again, we're looking for 3 people. Well, in totality, it's 4, because the people that killed Morrison was 4, but who knows if one of those could be dead now. We'll talk about that later. So, but they end up meeting with the officer who was investigating the EPA agent's death, because he wouldn't let it go. And the moment his partner was like, yeah, we should be looking into this, yada, 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 I was like, that guy's getting a little too squirrely. I don't like that. But they end up meeting up with a hitman who points him in the direction of the person who's most likely responsible for this. I love that he kind of justified, like, right, I go after, like, I kill people, sure, but I kind of go after bad guys. I sure as hell don't go after people with badges, but it just seems like he's on some, like, not vigilante stuff, but it's kind of like, I kill bad people. So it's not like any people I kill are, I'm not trying to toot his own horn, but I just thought that was kind of interesting dialogue, which was like, yeah, I kill bad people specifically. But the person who most likely killed Joe and the EPA agent is called the Viking. So I'm wondering if this hitman is someone, well, it's someone that's super professional. So it's probably not someone we know, but people we know probably tagged along with him in this regard. Like I said, there was at least 3 people involved with Joe's death. Chief Morrison, as we saw, there was 4 people. So that's why I'm like, one of those might be dead currently, but I'm sure it's still the professional maybe. Well, because Joe got killed the way he did, the EPA agent got killed the way he did, Morrison got killed the way he did, just kind of send a message. So whoever might be involved in this, I mean, the Viking in particular could be, well, I was about to say, like, might not necessarily be with the South Americans fully, might just be, like, hired out by the South Americans. It's unclear. Because I was like, that's a very, like, specific means of dealing with Morrison, like, sending a message. So that definitely seemed like that was more on the South American side of things, like Kleiner's business partners in that capacity. Like, he must be dealing with like a cartel or something, because that's some cartel mob shit. It sucks that what's that detective's name? I think his name was Acoin. I forgot, but it sucks. He didn't want to pull the trigger, even though both Reacher and Neely kept being like, yo, pull the trigger on him, but he wouldn't. Because at the end of the day, I think he was trying to talk him down, because it's like, I don't want to have to be responsible for killing you, because at the end of the day, you are my partner. But he was reluctant, but still pulled the trigger on him. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to take you guys to the woods, and I'm going to shoot you quickly. Like, he doesn't want to do this. His family's being threatened, so it sucks. But Neely and Reacher forced the car to crash, and he's like, all right, you have 2 choices. Like, we're stuck in the water and water's filling in. I can save you, but you will go to jail, and they most likely will kill you in prison, and then they'll most likely take care of your family, because they don't want to take the chance that your family might know something. That's why Charlie and his family Charlie and her children are in danger, and even Morrison, his wife got clapped, So they lead the guy, which I'm also kind of like, there's a little thing of like, you feel bad for him, but at the same time, you're like, it's kind of his just dessert, so. I mean, it's all because that guy, one cop, didn't want to let this go. Like, that guy being, like I said, the moment he started acting squirrely, like, no, we don't have to do this. Like, we're putting ourselves in danger. But for him, it's like, right, some bad people are getting away with stuff. We can't just let that go. And it's just, there's some really good people in this show. Sadly, they end up being the ones who suffer the ramifications. Like, obviously some of the bad people have been forced to pay, sure, but it's sad that we're losing good people along the way, just like this cop this episode, and then like Molly last episode. Everyone just trying to do the right thing when the whole large-scale operation is kind of bearing its teeth at you, and kind of so many bad guys are able to just get away with the shady shit that they're up to. Picard has to go back to work because he's been away for too long and might draw too much suspicion. So because she needs to get out of town, Roscoe's going to be one looking after Charlie and her children. So that works out. At least you got someone reliable watching them. But that also means eventually someone's probably going to find Charlie, and like Roscoe's probably going to be in the middle of that. Hopefully it doesn't turn into a situation where, I don't know. I'm curious to see what ends up happening. I think everything's going to be okay on that front, but there's no guarantees in this. Because you have Finley sneaking into Kleiner's company trying to find some files to kind of, because they don't have anything that can directly, because even those tax stuff that Gray was looking into, none of it's like can be used as criminal evidence against them. So they need something more directly connecting all of this to Kleiner. And there is when Finley finds Kleiner. Looks like his throat was slit. It's like, wow. It's like, well, you're not the top dog in this. You were just a middle guy, and you were also expendable because you were... I'm curious to see how KJ feels about that. Is he going to be so heartbroken? Kid's kind of a social... I say kid, but that dude seems like a sociopath anyway, so I don't see him being too heartbroken about that, but we'll see. I mean, I'm sure a lot of that falls on him now, and whatever his dad was mixed up in, he probably has to take the reins of it, because if he doesn't, he's dead. Not unless he was kind of told to take care of that, so not unless he did that himself. I don't know. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to find out whether or not KJ had something to do with his dad's death because he wants to run the operation and thinks he could do it better than his dad, or maybe he thinks his dad's too much of a punk and needs to to handle things with a more firm fist or something. Or maybe it's the same, and maybe it's the Viking. They are the professional in the group. So, but granted, they've handled everything with bullets and stuff. So why go switching it up and slicing Kleiner's neck? But it could also be a situation. It seemed like that was a throat slit because there was blood around his neck. So, not unless you was strangled with something that cut his throat. But it seemed like his throat was slit. It didn't pause and look closely enough. Just at a glance, it looked like his throat was slit. So. Not unless that was also much like the Morrison situation was supposed to be. That was a message. Maybe this is supposed to be a message too. Because once again, why not just go to the same thing you did about the EPA agent and Joe? Maybe you don't want to connect it. It's so interesting too because without what's Till going to do? Because Kleiner was supposed to. Well, Kleiner was his boss, but even Kleiner himself was just middle management to some extent. He's not the jefe of this situation, not the big boss. So. What does this mean for Till now that this is happening? Maybe he'll falter a little bit, or maybe he'll still keep puffing out his chest. He doesn't have Kleiner's boot on his neck anymore. Doesn't excuse him from not. He's still a piece of shit, but I'm so curious to see what he does now that you can assume what it was his safety net is gone now. So he's probably still going to play his role just in case he doesn't want to end up the same way. So. Reacher did try to get Neely to walk away from this, but for her, it's no, it's because if I walk away, something could happen to you. Because she had said earlier in the episode that she'd be sad if something happened to Reacher because of how big he is. It'd be like losing two friends in one. But for her, it's she's not backing down from this. They've already tried to kill you. They've tried to kill me, so this is personal now. But it's also right, they're a squad, they're friends, and also they have their military history as special investigators, so she's going to see this through. It's just too many people around Reacher starting to get caught up in a crossfire. There's just, once again, too many bodies stacking up. First his brother, now, Roscoe, had someone she cared about that was killed a year ago now. This situation of, he doesn't want her to get caught up in it, and what happened when Molly's just extra motivating him to be careful about protecting the people around him. That's actually why he had told, Roscoe understood, but it wasn't until, she understood why Reacher did what he did, but when he expressed it was right, Molly got killed because she got too close to a Reacher, and you saw that sad look on Roscoe's face, yeah, I can understand why you'd feel the need, if you don't want me caught up in the middle of this, and especially because people close to her have already died, like Grace, so it's just a sucky situation. Some very, very interesting developments all around. It's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.